Hello, everyone. It's Monday, July 15th. It's time for a TXA market update. It has been a while since I was able to check in with everybody. I think it's been almost a month. Goodness gracious. We were somewhere back in here. The market kind of cooled off and went sideways. A lot of alt trades probably got stopped out. I know a lot of mine did. Of course, we made some pretty solid gains on the way up, building up into this area. So once those trades got stopped out, it was time to pretty much wait and go quiet. Um, Personally speaking, I've been dealing with a lot going on with my grandma. She's been having a hard time adjusting. She got diagnosed with dementia. I think I mentioned it, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster. So I have been a little bit MIA. I did want to check in though, because a lot of stuff has happened in just the last few days, really the last week. And when we stepped into here, just about a week ago, I started posting in Discord and making hints about this being do or die. And so I wanted to check in and just see where are we, what's the market showing. Obviously, some significant green over the last few days. People are getting excited. It's only 13% in the big picture, but we're headed back up to that important check-in up above, and this is starting to look even more like a bull flag than it did before. We've broken the local resistance. A lot of alts are in areas where they should rebound nicely. They've already begun. Some of them are already double-digit percentages. So what opportunities are out there? There's a lot. When Bitcoin starts to do this, honestly, when you're somewhere in here at the possible start of the next leg up, if that's what we're going to get, you almost can't lose if you pick anything reasonable on larger exchanges like Coinbase or Binance. And of course, when I say Binance, I mean larger cap coins, mid cap coins, not random shit coins that just got listed that are no cap. So you have to be somewhat careful. But if you've been in this market long enough, I mean, you can look at a list of coins like this, and just about anything you've been following should be at a local swing low and a resistance point now, where you can start to look at positioning yourself for this possible leg. Bitcoin, if it goes up and does this move, still has possibly 50%. And if Bitcoin moves 50%, that market cap and that power spreads across the market, and we'll see a lot of movement in the days and weeks ahead. Now, I am going to get a little tinfoil tonight too, because a lot of interesting things have been happening in US politics, and I've made some connections today that I wanted to share with some of you guys. I haven't had a chance to really dig into that rabbit hole kind of space, and I've got a big one. So I'm excited. I'm here to make this recording to check back in, kind of start the process going, and make sure all of you are able to take advantage of this and not just get left behind in the dust in case this top breaks off. You don't want to be chasing stuff after the fact. Now, this is not confirmed a break of the top. This is just confirmed some strength of support. And this has shown us we're not going to go anywhere too significant. We cleaned up this entire breakout area here after this consolidation. So we've cleaned it all. Now we're bouncing back up, and we're getting ready to test the resistance. With all of the context of that, there's just been a lot. There's been a lot going on. Let's see, this candle for today, for Monday, this is Sunday, and then here's the candle on Saturday, where former US President Trump was almost assassinated. Somebody attempted to assassinate him. If you've been living under a rock, maybe you haven't heard. By now, most of you have probably heard. And for some reason, Bitcoin just kept going up after that. It was very odd. The timing was weird. And I couldn't quite put my finger on what's the market telling us. Well, we know the market likes to tell before we find out news. A lot of times the news explains the moves. That's why buy the rumors, sell the news. And there's a lot to unpack here. Something has changed. You can see the buying volume coming up out of nowhere. We pretty much consolidated sideways. This was about a 26%, a normal pullback in a bullish type of move. In the big picture, we're still on a bullish uptrend. Right? That hasn't changed. We haven't left that behind. And you can really consider that we were in a pretty solid uptrend channel. We bounced outside of it. We popped back in it, but we haven't really made significant lower lows. In the grand scheme of things, this is a higher low from the last swing low. So nothing really says bearish, other than the potential for a double top here that a lot of people have been paying attention to and worried about. And a lot of perma bears have been screaming that this is where we're going to turn around and we're going to drop off the face of the earth. Now, TI did have an idea on here that I did agree with as a possibility, that we could have broken out of the flag here, rejected downward, and checked in with some supports below. We had some levels we could have went to as low as 44 and still been in an uptrend channel and been bullish in the big picture. Technically, this breakout all the way down at 31, some people wanted to see that cleaned up. That would have been a massive wick, a significant pain to this uptrend, and it would have shut a lot of things down, and that would have started to look like a turnaround, because in that context, in the big picture, then you're getting around to the 50, and that's really a swing back down, right? But in the grand scheme of things, we've barely retraced at all. So far, we've marched up from the bottom, pulled back 20%, marched up, consolidated sideways with a dip of 20%, marched up again, pulled back, 20%, marched up and pulled back, about 20%. This is bullish market behavior. And if this top breaks off, we are going to do price discovery like we haven't seen since 2020 or 2017. To be honest with everybody, I've been saying this a while, this has felt a lot like coming off of this move, 2015, and then 2016 is recovery, and now checking back in with the all-time high with about a 20 to 30% pullback. Really, this was the first check-in here, so I should be measuring off of this check-in where it could have been a double top, and you're looking about 30%. Then the top broke off, they bled a little, and then they went straight up. That was after an uptrend channel with the top broken off. 1,000%. That doesn't mean Bitcoin's going 1,000% from here. We may only get 50%. But the price action is very similar. You can see this top, this dip, and this run. So if we kind of model where we are now off of this potential, we can use our bars pattern here. What would that possibly look like? Because I've toyed around with this idea for a while that this is very 2015, 2016 like. I didn't even have to stretch it. Now I'm going to adjust it only to make this part line up better here. So if I adjust that, it starts to make a little bit more sense. Something like that. Now, do I think that means we're going to 500K? That's a hard sell, but Bitcoin has surprised and shocked people before. When we were doing this kind of move here, we were at 12K. If someone had told you at 12K, when 20K was the high before, we were going to 60, would you have believed it? 300%. Well, that would be about 285. It's possible. All I'm saying is it's possible. Does it mean we're doing it for sure? No. But I see that long, drawn out, bearish, desparish accumulation phase for some people behind the scenes before the final breakout and the parabolic run up. That has happened before. It looks to be happening again. That's all I'm saying. And if that's the case, we are on the precipice of a potential very significant rally, and we have to be ready for that possibility. Now, we've talked all about the possibility of going down and checking with supports and this failing. We've prepared for that. And if that happens, if these moves fail and we break back down, we'll be ready to get in lower. But if they don't and you're not in anything yet, what are you going to do? Now, hopefully you all have paid attention for a while, and some of these things that we've traded in and out of, Jasmy, for example, if you had got in when we first got into Jasmy and wrote it up, I mean, you would have significant percentages right now to play with. Something huge. 700%. 7 times. That's nothing to sneeze at. And if you had sold some off and flipped it, you'd be really happy right now. Right? And you could repeat that story with some of these other ones that we flipped risk-free engine. If you were getting in now, I mean, look at how much better the entry is now. And that percentage back up to there is there all over again. With Bitcoin where it is now, showing us there's a possibility, again, of breaking the top, we can start to try to position ourselves. Now, before I go into the rest of these charts, let's drop down the rabbit hole for a second. Let's talk about this, because Bitcoin was stuck here. Despair had set in, and then all of a sudden, former President Trump assassination attempt, and Bitcoin just takes off. So let's kind of talk about, I don't want to get too political. I want to keep it crypto-centric, but crypto right now is having a moment in politics. Now, this was about a month ago, and former President Trump, says President Trump here, but former President Trump was speaking and speaking to a crowd here. And he comes out as pro-Bitcoin. And this is something that a lot of people, I don't think, were expecting. Let me make sure on my share here that I am also sharing my volume, my audio. Microphone, same as system. Advanced sharing options. Okay. Hopefully you can hear this. I don't want to keep it going for too long, but I'm going to kind of repeat what he says too in case it's not clear what he's saying. I will support the right to self-custody. I say this. I will keep Elizabeth Warren, yada, yada, off of your Bitcoin. Okay, so he came out, said he supports self-custody, and said he's going to fight back to keep people away from, quote unquote, your Bitcoin. Okay, so that's a month ago. Well, now, oops, let's go with the dark background here. Sorry if I blinded anybody with that. I may have to refresh something as I go here. Now, the Republican Party just a week ago, now this is the tinfoil hat part. Start putting your tinfoil hat on here for a second. We're gonna have a little fun with it. The Republican Party, July 8th, a week ago, unveiled a draft party platform detailing its objectives concerning cryptocurrency and AI. The draft states Republicans will end Democrats' unlawful and un-American crypto crackdown and oppose the creation of a central digital bank digital currency. So that's tinfoil point number one. We know central banks, big money that wants to track the comings and goings of every cent. Central bank digital currency would be great for that. So having this opposition to central bank digital currency is sending a message to all the crypto holders that may be in the middle of the aisle, I've got your back, yada, yada. But more importantly, it's sending a message to the people that are involved in finance that might see that and want that. Now, it's very interesting that this came out on July 9th, Tuesday, July 9th, and then 5 days later, you have an assassination attempt on Trump's life. And then today, Trump has announced that he is going to run with a vice president on his ticket in J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio. And I know so many people in America probably going, wait, who? Who is J.D. Vance? What? Who's this random guy? This is good. Bear with me here. Please do not think I'm advocating for you to vote right or left in this upcoming election. I am no horse in this race. However you vote is your choice to vote. I believe in democracy and everybody's right and opinion to vote any way they want. Please vote however you feel is right. That being said, okay, J.D. Vance has ties to crypto. Some very interesting background ties to crypto. He's got ties to Peter Thiel. Interesting. Where does he have ties to Peter Thiel? Well, the more you dig into J.D. Vance, the more you find out that when he was early on in his career, before he became a senator, he went to the University of Ohio. He went to a prestigious law school, got his law degree and Ivy League, and then he went and worked for Peter Thiel and his venture capital firm in San Francisco. Yeah, he did. Who's Peter Thiel? Well, if you don't know who Peter Thiel is, he is actually a co-founder of PayPal. Okay, number one, old Silicon Valley money. He was also the first outside investor in Facebook. More outside old .com money. He also founded Palantir Technologies. Some of these names you all should recognize. And he also founded Clarion Capital and a group called the Founders Group, the Founders Fund. In 2017, the Founders Fund bought about 15 to 20 million worth of Bitcoin. In January 2018, the firm told investors Due to the surge, the holdings were worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Interesting. Not only that, Peter Thiel's venture capital founders fund had invested $100 million in Bitcoin last year at a price below $30,000. So this is a report from June 2024, just last month. So he invested another $100 million when it dipped under $30,000. They began first investing in Bitcoin in 2014, making $1.8 billion before selling before the 2022 market collapse, only to invest another $100 million when it got below 30K. You think that these people don't know what's going on with Bitcoin? Okay. Well, they also have now added, Founders Fund added 200 million before the most recent bull run. So from late summer to early fall of last year, this article is from February 24. So late summer to early fall of 2023, late summer to early fall. They put 100 million into Bitcoin and into ETH, right in the bottom of that channel. I mean, you couldn't have picked a better spot. These guys know what the hell they're doing. $100 million into Bitcoin, $100 million into ETH. Where are they now? They're up 145%. So up $145 million roughly on top of the 100 million they started with in Bitcoin, and roughly the same probably in ETH. And now a former employee of Peter Thiel's firm has just been nominated to the vice president ticket for former President Trump, who was almost assassinated 5 days after announcing that the Republican Party is now adopting his stance on crypto and dropping the idea that there won't be a central bank digital currency. I mean, that just screams tinfoil. I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know what does. Now, to tell you a little more about JD Vance, he has started circulating draft legislation in the last month in relation to crypto. He's on the Senate Banking Committee. Let me make this a little bigger for you all. And apparently, according to people familiar with this legislation that's supposed to be released in the next couple of weeks, his draft of this legislation, it would overhaul how the SEC and the CFTC police the crypto market. People have seen the draft, said it's more industry friendly than what the House has drafted. Insiders are split on whether it makes sense to rally behind him or not. And what else did it have? There was another thing in there that was very interesting. His draft bill is more industry friendly because it would take a simpler approach to determining which digital assets the SEC would oversee versus the CFTC. And they said they don't want to start over. The bill is just right. And not only that, in another area I was reading about it, it had to do possibly with how crypto will be taxed, and that it would not be tracked by the government. Transactions wouldn't be tracked on your tax returns. And part of the draft said that banks could not drop you as a customer for using cryptocurrency, which would be huge for businesses. This would be like medical marijuana getting the full green light into the banking industry, except it's crypto. And that's who has been chosen. And it gets a little bit more interesting as well. One last little highlight. He did disclose, this is JD Vance, that in 2022, he had between $100,000 and $250,000 worth of crypto in 2022. Somewhere in here, he had $100 to $250,000 of crypto. So if he was anywhere in there near Peter Thiel, who is his former employer, could have been in here that he bought it when Peter gave him a tip. They're all doing quite well with crypto. And now, for the first time, we've got potentially candidates running for the offices, the highest offices in the executive branch of the United States government, at least one of which for sure holds crypto, the other of which probably does, and we may find out in the near future. On top of all of this, if this didn't get your gears running enough, this was, let me get a time refresh, 5 hours ago. Another $1 billion minted by your friends over at Tether. So there's a lot of reasons to be bullish in the macro picture. Not only do we have an election coming up in November, we have people that may be crypto friendly stepping into high power positions. Whether or not you agree with the rest of their platform has nothing, your emotions have nothing to do with this market and the implications that the world puts on them, geopolitical or not. These are positive signs. If certain things take place in November, it could very well trigger an end of the year rally for crypto. And this could lead us into next year with possible legislation and things being put on desks. We could get a tone shift. We could. It may take much longer than we like. It may not look like a parabola like it has in the past. Perhaps instead of a parabolic move, it stretches way out and takes much longer than we want it to. We have no way of knowing how this plays out, when, for how long. But what we do know is we're in a very high potential spot. If this top breaks off, we're technically at the previous high. And if we can blast through this resistance and the top breaks off in these macro conditions, we have a chance at another bull run, and a significant one where you could make lots of money from lots of different crypto. The trick is shifting your thinking from a sideways pullback consolidation type market to a bull market, because it will be a lot of FOMO. There will be a lot of things that you missed. There will be things that have already taken off now that you may have missed that you can't catch safely, and you have to take a little bit of risk on more than you're used to catch them. But in a positive sentiment market, that's easier to do. There's less drawdown pressure. Pullbacks are more like 20% instead of 50, 60%. They're not as hefty. They're not as tough to survive. But you have to keep your emotions in check. Now, before I go for the evening and wrap this up, let's just go through some of the other charts. So ETH seeing a nice bounce with Bitcoin. Nice to see. ETH never really got up out of this channel, so it's still in its channel, and relatively speaking, it did gain some strength back, but now it's sitting sideways on the 236. So about the same relative strength that it was back in October of 23. So ETH and Bitcoin overall have ended up in the same relative strength for almost a year now. Been pretty much lockstep. You can see over here on the CME futures, here's a little bit of a gap. So if there's any reason to be concerned at all, it's right here on the CME futures chart, right about 58, 59K. There's a chance they come up one more time, or even don't come up and come right down and get it. But if they do this and that, or they do this first, this is an area where we should see those gaps closed. We should see some of the alts pull back to supports and find fantastic entries. They don't have to do this now. This is not a wide open gap. There's trading to the left of it. Liquidity has been released here. This is not a guarantee. And they may not do it until they go all the way up over 100 and then decide to cut in 50% and come back to 50K. Don't think it can't happen. This is crypto. All right. So there is a little bit of a reason to be suspicious there. The DXY has cooled off recently under 104, just sitting there. There is your blow off on the Dow Jones Industrial, starting to be more and more like a wedge there. Very interesting. The S&P sticking straight up. Bitcoin dominance bounced a little bit, but starting to kind of chill out, which means alts are also absorbing this. Robinhood making a huge recovery in the big picture. We talked about this way back here at the beginning of the year. We talked about this breakout here and about what was on the table for them. And from that point so far, they're up 73%. They're probably getting back up to that top there. Coin, you can see, enjoying the Bitcoin bounce a bit there. This has been a massive move for Coin. 586% at the bottom. Coinbase doesn't care about the sideways consolidation one bit. Nvidia still massively up in the air. Disgustingly high, well deserved for the chips they're making. Look at that move on block. Did we call this potential square here or what? I mean, this shoulder here, I mean, that is textbook. We talked about a potential entry there. If you had taken that, you'd be up 12%. You still technically could get it. They may pull back on you, but they wouldn't probably pull back 20% now. So this is something you could enter if you wanted a stock tied to crypto. Amazon, a little bit of a pullback, about to have Prime Day. Let's look at some of these alts. A lot of these alts, any of these alts we were in on our second set of entries on this pullback, we probably got stopped out on. And some of them I may have cleared them out in doing work. Algo, I know was one we got stopped out on at some point, and now you can see they are starting to bounce off that support zone. If this is the low and they came up and back, I mean, that is huge. If we are in true bullish territory, we can start to look up, and what we see when we look up is pretty massive. I mean, those percents are gross, but we don't even have to look that high. That's the beauty of coming in from the bottom of a swing, just going back up to where they were at the peak at the end of 2021, 1,300%. And Algo bouncing off the bottom here has retraced pretty nicely. There's that 786 hit. Let me get a better color on here so this is more obvious. There's that 786 hit. Now we're back above the 618. If we have broken the downward resistance here, if this is it for downward resistance, that's your entry. That's as good as you're going to get, because it's going to go up and pull back first, and you're not going to get much lower than that. And even if you do, chances are they're not going much more than they already were. The only way this changes is if Bitcoin turns around and instead breaks out below the flag, which doesn't look probable right now. Cello is one that I took an entry myself on. I have taken an entry on Cello in the last few days over the weekend after this. Actually, no, sorry. Cello I took before the weekend. I've actually taken a couple entries this weekend as well. I got this one when Bitcoin was kind of slowing off the dip. One thing I did notice, and I posted it in Discord, there was, and you could have seen this on, even on Coinbase, it was very obvious. You had divergence, daily divergence between the RSI and price action, something I have not seen in quite a while. Look at this divergence here. Bitcoin price went lower, but relative strength went higher. That is a sign that selling has exhausted. When I saw that, I started buying some positions in here on the chance this would break out. Now they could have went down and I had to have some stops in place and everything, but those positions are up about 20% already. That doesn't mean I'm worried though. There's plenty more for me to enter and things to take advantage of. And that's something that you really have to know what you're doing, and you have to understand the risk of entering in a spot like that in the greater market context. But now things have gotten a bit better. And I feel a bit safer here. And now, even in the last day, this has changed a lot. I mean, if you rewind from yesterday, this was a completely different market. Where's my bars here? Here we go. I just want to go one. Okay. That was looking like, okay, we might have a bounce starting. We have a little bit of a breakout. Can we get confirmation? Yeah, you're confirmed. I mean, it doesn't get more obvious than that. And so now we have to see, we may get a little retracement here in the lower time frames in the next day or two. If we do, you've got positions that will open up across some of these alts. Cello is one where if they come back off this break and hook, that's a fantastic entry. It's a fantastic entry now. Honestly, you could put a 30% stop and forget about it. And this, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, we had a massive move up here, big channel. We made it up to $10 per Cello, and then we broke to the downside. And what did we do now? Doesn't that look familiar? It's not exactly the same, but there's that general shape there before the big up move. And when Jasmy broke out of that wedge and went up, Jasmy went straight up 300%. It's now at 500% from that point. Where would that put Cello? Boom, right at the 2.618. This is a chart right here at 57 cents that realistically, if we get a new bull cycle, could go back to $10. Could go back up to this area and possibly higher, just off of the retracement. Now, there's some pretty big money buys in here that we could use. Look at this big old candle here. Let's see where it's pointing at. I haven't looked at this beforehand. Ooh, don't mess that up. That's about as good as you could hope for. $10 to $12. That's what that candle's pointing at. This leg is a whole leg from this breakout here up to there. What's that pointing at? I need to zoom in because I don't want to feel like I'm just fitting. Okay. So here was the pullback. Here was the first bit of green to come in into this full leg, the 1, 2, 3. That's where I see this leg right here. And they peak right there. You can see that line up there, line up right there, line up at $11. I mean, from where we are now, if you can set something and forget it and not stress about it, and you can stand waiting a year, 2, 3 years if we do have a new bull cycle and it doesn't start in the next couple of months, 2,000%. 2,000%. You can put $100 in right now, have just under 200 coins. We'll say you could buy 200 cello for about just over $114. You could buy 200 cello. And that 200 cello would be worth $2,000. Right here. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. There are fantastic opportunities all over the place. Doggy, right on the trend line and getting bullish again. You didn't miss anything on Doggy. You could take an entry right now, honestly. And just for sake of tracking some of these, I'm going to take some entries with some very wide 30% stops just to see what could happen. Let's target this here. So that's a 30 to 20. That's a 4 to 1 risk to reward. If you target higher, it's a little bit better, but that's plenty. I don't mind. They should not come down to that point if we are going bullish and we're going to break the top off. They should break this trend line and go up and give me options. ENJ, they came all the way down to 13 cents. All the way down. All the way down to that 618 retracement. If you were really in the big picture looking to get into ENJ, and I could go all the way to the 3-day for this, and you came all the way from the entry onto Binance to the swing high, this is your best spot to enter, the 618, and look where they are. Couldn't be better. You'd have to have about a 30% stop again to hide behind it, or this is when you have to start considering your investor's cap. Do I buy a small amount of this that I don't mind forgetting about, even if it was to say wick down 40% one day and freak out? Because chances are if it does that, it's going to bounce right back up after clearing everybody else out. Maybe I don't want to stop on this. Maybe I'm just going to put $400 or $500 in it with no stop and just wait and see what happens. And if it drops in half and never comes back, that was my chance to get into this potential next bull run. But you have to understand that risk and be okay with it. Your mentality has to work with that. If you can't handle that, here's your entry. You can put a nice 30% stop. Set it and forget it. Maybe even like 33%. It doesn't even matter. They may pull back on me. I don't care. If we're going bullish, these things should recover and go higher. Recover and go higher. This is why we stopped out way out here so we could have another chance. ERG, look at that. Is that a double bottom or is that a double bottom with massive volume leading into it? Woo! Oof. If that is the bottom on this one for $1 and this one's going to go back up to $20, that's a 20 times off the bottom. Massive. Please don't go and take every single one of these positions. I'm putting them on here for illustrative purposes. I do not have all of these coins. I posted my watch list, some of which I do have positions on in Discord. That is not advice to buy those positions. It's just to give you an idea of what I'm looking at and what positions I have considered and or taken. It's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. But you could take a position here, hide below the very bottom of this one, potentially a huge bullish turnaround, and you've got some massive percentages up above. Huge. Huge. This is one I should post in Discord later. I mean, it's across the board here. Now, this one, because they went so high, they've bounced off of this consolidation area here, which is kind of nice. They cleaned it up, but you've got a lot of room below. This one could potentially go lower, even while everything else is going higher, to clean this up first. So I wouldn't take an entry right away on that one. IOTX in a very interesting spot, but not willing to take it. Jasmy, another one. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't, you just didn't. This one could go all the way up to 30, 40 cents again. You want the ones that are down here. That's what you want, not the ones that are already up here. KDA, we got stopped out, and they're right back about where we stopped out. But this one could also be a double bottom. My goodness gracious. If this is a double bottom, we're about 34, 5% off the bottom. You could technically take an entry on this one. Just about anything. Look at Komodo. They stopped us out, but they bounced right off that stinking trend line. If you had a buy there, you'd be a happy camper right now, 30% up. That's hard to take now, though. You could with a 30% stop, though. If that's the one that you love and you really had to take it. KNC, look at that. Beautiful in the bottom of this accumulation zone. That's an entry you could take. That's one that on the next bull run could get going finally. I'm not going to put it on there right now. Link just barely stopped us out and then popped back up. Not nice, but it happens. You have to take risks to make money as long as you control them. This is Loopring. They made a lower low, so that one's hard to take an entry on. But looking left, you can see they just kind of bounced off an area they tapped before. Here's Litecoin coming back up to the trend line if they can. Metal trying to come up out of that bottom. Neo got completely annihilated back all the way down under $10, almost to the 786. I mean, that's pretty nice. If you adjust it off of this swing, that's a 786 hit and a bounce. So if you didn't get Neo before, you've got a chance to get it with a 30% stop now and almost an easy 100% back up to the top. I mean, that's the thing. You don't have to get these where they are now. You don't have to get them to make massive, huge home run hits. You could double your money on Neo right now if they run back up to the top and just take your half, get your initial capital back, and you've got a free bag of Neo. Anything you can get a free bag of anytime is a good time because it adds to your portfolio. Power, geez, I really wanted this one to hold out like Jasmy, and they just slipped right out the bottom of that, did not hold up to it, bounced underneath 20 cents. But now you could take another entry on this one and you've got massive upside. I still like this one in the bigger picture. This one, I actually have a little bit of. I nibbled it when I saw Bitcoin stalling out in the lower time frame, when selling was exhausting, when I saw that divergence. I nibbled on this one because I do see this one going back up over $1 from 20 cents. Just to retrace to the top if a bull market comes, and they could go higher than that. Sand, you can see possible double bottom type formation, locally speaking, but it's coming up off of a big swing from below. They may need to go clean that up. Not all of these are going to run just because the market's running. Here's a bit of a potential local double bottom again on SNX. I wouldn't take it. ADA is looking a lot like Jasmy as well right now, and ADA has a huge bounce up to the top to retrace. So for me, this is one I can take with relative comfort. I recognize the name. I know it's not going anywhere. ADA's in it for the long haul. It's been, what, $3 was it? Yep, $3. It's at 40 cents. So that's almost a times 10. It's like a times 9. I can enter with a 30% stop and expect that if Bitcoin doesn't melt down, they should not get me there. And if we get a bull market, they should get back up there. mean, this is that huge move that Jasmy had, and it lines up again with about what Jasmy had set up. So I could take an entry on Auto right now. $500 could be $2,500 in a few months if they do what I want them to do. Now, before I go, I have a couple of coins that I have nibbled on. I like them for the bigger picture. I think these ones have potential. Fundamentally, I think they have some strong, really strong points for the next cycle. And from a standpoint of where they're priced and where they could go, they have some big multiplication potential ahead, multipliers. Here is that cup and handle that you see all over the place. This is that Jasmy pattern. It's a little bit sloppier on Jasmy, but it's that same kind of big, wide dip. Actually, they've got that almost exactly. Look at that. Ooh, that's beautiful. Let's just for fun, if they did this Jasmy type of move, I'm going to take it from here and paste it over here. What would this look like? Look at that. And we're going to get it from right there. See if we can line this up right. Don't get too excited. Don't freak out on me or anything. If it goes real crazy high, it's just the way it comes out. So it's point, round, poke. So point, round, poke. Yep, that's about lined up. It's a little bit off still. There we go. That's about the width. And these things don't always move in the same time frame, but you can see that sharp spike, right? Sharp spike. I'm off still a little bit. It's hard to get it because this one's a little bit not as lined up with the peaks, but it's that same kind of shape, rounding out, pulling back. If this one was to just get going like Jasmy did, I mean, there's that potential to get up to $1 from a half a cent. Very similar to some other, there was some other things that I've been looking at that have that pattern like Jasmy had. Very similar to that situation with Jasmy, where you're down at about a half a cent coming out of that bottom, and you're going to start looking higher up above. Now, Jasmy only made it to 3 or 5 cents, but that about lines up with where I would expect this break. I mean, that's a bit massive. I was trying to line up the structure more than where they're pointing to. If we want to know where these are pointing to, we've got to measure the legs of money that have come in. So here's a fib extension we can measure. Here's another one we can measure. Let's change the color on this one. This is a big entry here and here we could measure. Let's do the initial entry because those are always interesting. I feel like those are always people that have some kind of money involvement in the grand scheme of things for a given project. All right, so there's 3 of them. What do we notice right away? Well, right away I see a bit of congregation at 7 cents, some lining up right here at 8 cents, and some spraying out up above. So the highest that makes sense to line up with here is about 81 cents to $1, which is right about what I would expect. That's what I'm targeting in the big picture. And if I go from the top to the bottom of the retracement here, the 1.6 is right at about 60 cents. It doesn't really give me much more significant than that. There's not a lot of chart here to work with. It's still early. I could measure just one more measurement. I could measure this leg of money that came in 1, 2 here. Oops, one extension. Well, I see some red actually here. So I'm just going to measure this one leg right here. There we go. And you can see there's that 23 cents and 43 cents. So, you get it there. My 6.85 stretches up way high into the stratosphere. So maybe not so much, but there's an interesting congregation at 4 cents. Even at 4 cents, this is a massive trade. So for me, this is a pretty easy entry. They pulled right back off the local swing. They pulled back to a perfect 618. You can see they know where these fibs are. I got no problems taking a very simple entry. I can give it a tighter stop than the other ones, actually. It shouldn't go more than 25% in the current context. And then I'm looking for some kind of about 4 cents, some kind of 500% for this one just to blow the top off and get going back to where it's been before. Remember, it's been 8 cents before. So this is one of my little hidden gems that I've been watching closely that I'm very interested in. And the other one is Zeta. Zeta's pretty new. It launched on a lot of platforms. Fundamentally, they have some interesting ideas with what they plan to do. They want to unite a bunch of different chains, cross-chain interoperability. It's been said and done before, but they want to do it even better at a fundamental level. And it's an interesting concept, but they've got some pretty good money backers, and they blasted out of the gate up to almost $3, retraced it all the way back to under $1. And this is one where I could see them going higher. If I go down to the daily, they have to break resistance. They're right there. You could, though, take a position with 20%, be in a pretty safe relative spot, and then you're looking for them to go back up to the top at least, possibly higher. Honestly, based on what I've read about this one and who's backing it, I could see this one going as high as $10 in the next run. That doesn't mean they're going to. It's not a guarantee. But they're at a point where I could take nibbles, and if they do any kind of movement, I can dollar cost average my way up. So that's kind of where we are in the market. That's a few coins I'm looking at. Some possible entries are out there, even with Bitcoin sticking up, even with the potential to pull back. Bitcoin, if it pulled back to the bottom of the flag, about 13%. It would shut down some of those alt moves, but a lot of the alts are still sitting right on the edges of those supports. And we know Bitcoin moves first, then Bitcoin stalls out and alts move. So you may have some opportunities tonight in the very immediate future to position yourself. If Bitcoin continues this rally, even if it pulls back and cools off a little bit, if we get any kind of political influence, if we blow the top off and get going, most of these alts will run significant percentages. And as long as you are positioned to take advantage of these opportunities, there's plenty of money to be made. I am happy to be back with all of you. I'm looking forward to being here more often. Hopefully my grandma's a little more stabilized, and I can see how this plays out with all of you. Hopefully you all have been safe the last month. I go back to work at school in a couple of weeks, but I'm still here for a couple more weeks. Please reach out in Discord if you have any questions. If there's any charts you want to see, don't hesitate. But for right now, this is looking strong, and this is looking like we haven't seen in a while. And there's a lot of positive sentiment, and macro conditions are primed for this. Elections coming up, plus potential Fed rate cuts as the CPI data suggests inflation is cooling, could further ease the pressure selling pressure on Bitcoin and give us more upside ahead. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll be back later on this week. I'm anticipating end of the week, Friday, Saturday, popping back in here with you all and checking in. So thank you all for your patience, for your continued support, for your kind words behind the scenes. I look forward to seeing you all in a few days. Be smart, be safe, start with risk first, protect your capital, but take advantage when opportunities show up, and don't be afraid to seize the day. Take care, everyone.